Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Lisa from Question the Narrative, and I am lucky enough to be here with Antonia Harmon from Divine Empowerment. Good afternoon to you, my dear. How are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
Good, good. It's the weekend. We're doing this. I love always saying the date, and I think people appreciate that. We're doing this on March 11th. I love this. All the 11 numbers are great. I used to live in an apartment that was 11, and I always found that a really powerful, wonderful number. So we're March 11th today, and it's a Saturday, and I'm really grateful, Antonia, that you're able to do this today because you and I had a really interesting conversation that yielded to you to go down into thinking through something that is kind of a breakthrough that you're having in healing. And it has to do because we ended up talking about different ways of using electricity and how we are electric beings, and it has to do with cellular voltage. So, Antonio, you want to just get us into this and tell us what you're working on and what's the sort of big new thought that you're having here?
I have notes. Yes, I can. Thank you very much for having me, Lisa. Well, yeah, you are really the inspiration behind this because unfortunately Lisa had an accident and she hurt her finger quite badly.
Mm,
So I'm always trying to think up new ways of helping people with different diseases. And So we just started talking, and then I just saw it. It's the funny way inspiration comes. You just watch a little TikTok video, and suddenly this aha moment happens, and it's in a eureka. And then I go off down crazy rabbit holes, and some of them are successful, some of them aren't. This
mm,
one seems to be working quite well. So
yeah.
let me just give everybody a bit of background. So this is, yeah, really from Lisa's needing to have cellular regeneration because
Exactly. And thank you for this. I love being inspiration for the positive side of this healing process.
yeah, we'll go more into what happened with her in a bit, but she's yeah, so she her finger hasn't been very well. And so I started thinking about cellular regeneration because it sort of got to the point where she needed cellular regeneration. Otherwise, it's the healing wasn't happening at a good rate and it was a bit worrying. So there's something called cellular voltage. And there was a guy called Otto Warburg who started looking into cellular voltage, and it's measured in millivolts. Okay, so high cellular voltage, which is for optimal health, is around 70 to 100 is the way that it's measured. Low cellular voltage is for sickness, and this is all measurable, as I said, in millivolts. They've got machines to do this, and it's between 30 and 50. Cancer cells have a low cellular voltage of around 20 millivolts.
Mm.
This is interesting because we're going to get, I know it's a bit techy, but we're going to get into the numbers later. Okay. There was a guy called
Anyway,
Robert.
let me just sort of give a little bit of background to how we
Yeah.
ended up getting to this was the fact that in my work that I did in healthcare in sort of more traditional sense on the investing side is I was working with electrical stimulation.
We're going to get to the frog in a second.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. That's the sort of the point that you sort of
Yeah.
get off. It's like, wow, I was just reading this. Okay,
Let's
great.
do this frog bit and then we'll talk
Perfect.
about that. I think is the best way of doing it because I need to now expand why we've gone into cellular
Right.
voltage and what is important about that. So that's just what our cellular voltage is in our body. There's a guy called Robert Olbecker who had an experiment with salamanders. And as if people don't know, salamanders can grow limbs back. If you chop off the tail or the leg of a salamander, it grows back. The same happens with the garden lizard, and the same happens with earthworms. You cut an earth, if you by mistake use a trowel and cut an earthworm in two, it's fine. It just grows back. It's absolutely fine. So, I mean, it might take a while, but it has the ability to regenerate. And
Mm,
that's what we're talking about is a
right.
lot of lower species have the ability to regenerate. And why don't we? Is the initial question. So
Good
there was this,
question.
yeah,
Mhm.
there was a guy, this Robert Olbecker, he had the experiments with salamanders and he did something pretty gnarly and he cut off the leg of a frog and he cut off the leg of a salamander to see what would happen. So what happened was the salamander had a surge of energy or like this millivolts of energy, a surge of
Mhm.
energy, because they were monitoring it, went to the severed limb, and lo and behold, he started growing back the limb. The frog, not so much. The frog was just left disabled. So that was really interesting until they started using an electrical current. They used an electrical current, which was a low frequency and low intensity electrical current, and the frog's leg regenerated. So it's possible with electrical currents, which then I'll just say this bit and then we'll go into you, Lisa.
Yeah.
It reminded me of a story that I heard a few years ago. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is an old wives' tale. It may well be, and I have researched and I couldn't find it, but allegedly it was taken off the internet. There was a young boy who had a salamander pet, and he was in a car crash, and he had his legs severed from the knee. It was there. It was just severed from the knee, which is terrible, obviously. But he had a pet salamander, and he'd seen the same happen to his pet, and he managed to grow his leg back. He had the thought that it would happen, and no one told him any different. Apparently it was on American TV, and apparently when it started growing back, they suddenly wiped all records of it, which feels entirely possible. And his
Wipe
leg
off
grew back.
TikTok and wipe off anything that's positive in healthcare.
Yeah, so apparently no one told him any different, and so his leg actually grew back because that's what he
Right.
thought would happen, and maybe there was a resonance from the salamander that he was picking up on, or goodness knows how and why that happened, yet allegedly it did. And it's just made me think, can we? Do we? Why don't we? How does all this work? And can we fix Lisa's finger? That was where I started.
Exactly. That's great. And it's interesting. So she had that revelation, and I was then marrying that with the idea that I actually had worked in this area with electrical stimulation, and that stimulation is to the vagus nerve. And what it did is it actually has many, many healing properties. So once again, it was electrical stimulation to the body. This one was specifically to the nerve, and this modality has been out there 40 years now in refractory epilepsy. And then the other product that I worked on was doing it for pain. So cluster headache, migraine headache, and then eventually they're doing other things, but those were both FDA and EMEA approved. They would take away pain. So something is happening with electrical currents in the body, which is where we all came from, which was really interesting. So then you looked at that and you said, okay, because I had I put a finger in a mini food processor, or
She
somehow
stuck her finger in a blender.
somehow they connected, and it wasn't good, don't recommend.
Bless you.
And we were trying to, and she was trying to heal, and she started doing, you want to tell us what
Well,
you
why don't
actually did
we
for
do
me?
the so the numbers that I said before, this is important because of the next bit, because we've been looking into millivolts, which is why I started with that. So
Right.
I looked at Lisa's finger and I dowsed, because I check things by dowsing often. I often get intuition, but then I often dowse and double check things, and my dowsing is pretty accurate.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I just it's a bit of a security blanket. I can do it with Alice, a bit of a security blanket.
I was happy you did.
So I looked at her cellular voltage of her finger, her blender finger. So, and as we said, sickness is 30 to 50, cancer is 20, and 70 to 100 is optimal, according to the research done previously. So Lisa's blender finger was at 30, which
Mm.
is pretty bad, and it was pretty bad. You've been to hospital a number of times, you've had it redressed, they nearly did surgery on it, they've stitched it, they've done quite a lot of work to it. It's actually, this is a relatively serious injury because you've had to be going back every couple of days, initially every day, to get it redressed. And
Mm.
there was a very real possibility of it needing surgery, and it was pretty bad. So, I can understand that it wasn't in optimal health. And so
Yeah.
obviously when they're talking about the low cellular voltage, they're probably looking at the whole body, or they may be looking at specific organs, but the rest of her body's in good health. But I'm just looking at the specific area, and it was quite low. So we suddenly thought, huh, what do we do now? So we started looking at embryos. And I started dowsing and looking at embryos and thought, what is the cellular voltage of embryos? Because if we think about embryos, embryos obviously can grow an entire baby in 9 months. Every single part of a new person is grown in 9 months.
Exactly.
And that means we can regrow a finger. Surely, I know the mechanism isn't working, and I know that it doesn't happen nowadays, but why not? And what's missing? And then I started thinking about embryonic stem cells. Now, I had a friend who was very wealthy, and he had a treatment which is a little bit, you know, questionable in America, and he had embryonic stem cells injected into several areas of his body. This is aborted fetuses,
Mm.
and they are recycled. And they are recycled in a lot of medicine, and they're recycled in other products as well. But that's by the by. But he had embryonic stem cells injected into, I believe, his heart and into a few different areas of his body, and they regenerated and they actually, he said, and he was in his 70s, and he said he felt like he was 20, 30 years younger. It actually really, really works because they have the propensity to be anything. So just a little bit of science for everybody. So every cell starts as a stem cell, and we run out of them as we age. And because we have less and less of them, then it means that there's more and more faults, and there's telomeres, and there's a whole, genetic rabbit hole that we can go down. But intrinsically, the more stem cells you have, the more you can regenerate easier, which is why as we get older, we run out. The way that you heal as a child is much quicker than the way that you heal as an adult. But why? And I wondered if it's anything to do with this cellular voltage. Is that cellular voltage propping up stem cells in some way? Is it creating stem cells, or what the dickens is going on? And why is the top? Well, that was you said 150, and then you went, why 150?
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm making this up as I go
You're
along.
just experimenting with this. Yeah,
i'm
yeah.
I'm honestly, my dream as a child was to be a mad scientist with hair growing out of my ears, and I'm certainly halfway there.
I can understand mad scientist, hair growing out of the ears. I think we're good.
I think I had an Einstein or Doc Brown thing
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on. I
yeah,
love Doc Brown. I mean, from
yeah,
Back to the Future, he's incredible. Anyway,
yeah.
um, so I started thinking, and then I also started thinking about beauty products, and I was thinking about stem cells, because I just remember an episode of Ellen where Sandra Bullock was talking about having, it's really gross, just FYI, but Korean children's foreskins, which has
Yeah,
got
this is
embryonic
this is
stem
this is
cells.
not good stuff. Yeah, I mean,
No, but that was used as
yeah,
a face
yeah.
cream,
I
but it's
know,
used in
but it's
beauty.
the derivation of that. I think we should be, that's that kind of
It's
stuff.
horrible.
It's horrible and it's wrong.
It's
I got
horrible and it's wrong,
yeah,
but it's used in beauty because
yeah,
it
yeah.
regenerates cells. The point
Yeah.
is it regenerates people's faces, and they use it in the beauty industry to regenerate.
So
It's
we
it's
know that
barbaric
there's
and
this
disgusting.
magic in the stem cells, and yeah, that which is really,
So
really
we're trying to do it with magic, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so I looked at this friend of mine's heart, and it went from having the cellular voltage. I doused into it. The cellular voltage from his heart was around 30 with his damaged heart, and then when he had the embryonic stem cells injected, it went up to 120. This is
Wow,
why we're
big
looking at this,
difference.
because
Yeah,
there's a regeneration level, because embryonic stem cells are 150. And is that maximum? Which is where Lisa was like, can
yeah,
we go above that? Why
yeah.
is it that? Why is that the top level? What is it? But it is the top level, or is it?
Mm. And that's when you started to play, because you started to play around energetically, looking at that and seeing what you
Mm.
do. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So then we started messing around with Lisa's finger and started to see if I could increase the cellular voltage with energy. So with the work that I do, I'm downloading energy and awakening my energy system all the time. I spend a lot of my time in a trance state awakening my system. And then I sort of have energetic play-doh. And I can sort of then, when I have an idea, and it's at the right time for it, or I'm guided to find something, then I can literally make whatever we need on demand. So that's the way I work with these things. So I thought, let's see if we can regenerate Lisa's finger and see if we can raise the vibration, the cellular frequency of Lisa's finger up and see where we are. So obviously I said it started around 30. So we started playing and we started pushing, and I was able to start playing around with cellular frequency, and I managed to start raising the vibration of Lisa's finger, raise. And then we got to 150 and we were capped. And then we were like, right, well, there's some distortion. I always work on distortions. There are blockages within our system which are there for two reasons. Sometimes there's a guardian there. It's to stop us from some of the guardians are positive and some of them are nefarious. Some of them are literally put in place because, you know, whoever, there are nefarious forces that stop us from going too far. Some of them are put in place because it's a bit dangerous and you don't want to give a baby a machine gun. There are different sides of things, but the other side is there are valves. There are valves, so you can push up and then it doesn't go back down again. It's pushing up and doesn't go back down again. That's the whole thing. So there are certain valves at different levels, so it doesn't decrease again, so it doesn't go down. So there are valves and there are nefarious things, but the 150, I had to remove some blockages, but some of them are, you know, there for good reasons and some of them are there for bad reasons, but some of them are just it's for safety. Some of them are there for safety. I was talking to someone about the other day, but yeah, it looks like they're there for safety. Anyway, so I started looking at this and I suddenly thought, if we can get our whole body, where's the maximum? When can we actually start to regenerate? And actually, what the hell is this? If we can get this going on our whole bodies, sounds like a med bed. Potentially.
Exactly, which was amazing. Exactly like a med bed. Exactly.
Sounds like it could be a med bed. And it sounds like this is possibly what med beds are doing.
Yeah.
But we can probably potentially do it ourselves without having to use tech, because I think that's what med beds are. They're just, you know, they are our natural abilities, but no one's discovered them, or few people have discovered them.
Right. And this is a difference, like, because you have that ability to generate that energy. So let make sure that people know that it's like, I'm not aware yet of my capability to do that. I had to have you do that with me.
Yeah, I've spent 20 years doing these things. I've got my own healing school, and you have to get past. I mean, my level 7 is when we remove people's, expand people's chakras into wings, and then they get a lot more abilities. But I doubt people would be able to do this just off the bat, because I think you have to go through a number of initiations before you get here. All of which I teach. All of which you just watch videos on my website and you get to them. This will all be in level 12, but you have to go through certain initiations. This has been 20 years of trance work and a serious amount of body pain and a serious amount of time in a different dimension.
Yeah, and that's what I just want people to know, that like the med beds are using, like what you're saying is they're using that kind of a thing, but what you're doing is you're enabling that, and you're going to be able to, you're teaching that now, how to do that, because we all have it intrinsically in us. We just need to figure out how to tap it, which is beautiful,
I think we're gods and goddesses who forgot we're gods and goddesses. I come from that perspective. I think that everything is possible. I don't see limitations. I don't, thinking outside the box. I lost my box decades ago. I don't have a box. Where's the box?
Yeah. Which is really the really interesting part. But I just want people to be aware that it was such a beautiful thing. First of all, for you, like the idea that you're doing is that you're coming up and you're realizing that we are energetic beings and we react to energy. It's always energy, and that these machines that are the med beds are using energy, but to know that we also have that within us, because in a way, so many of the things that are been taught about, like the power of who we are, is always about how we heal ourselves, which we're getting to. And she was doing that with me, but she has this energy opportunity, and she's realizing maybe how to guide us into saying that, okay, this voltage thing, energy. It's really
So
cool.
why
I
don't you
love
tell
I
us
love
what
it.
happened to your finger? Because,
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
I'll
we're at
tell you
that
a little bit
stage.
about it. Okay, so right now I'm doing this right now. It's the first time I have the thing off, and I won't scare anybody by turning this finger around, which is what she's done on there. Is that I had these two
This
fingers.
is 2 weeks ago. So basically the
Oh,
progress.
it was almost a month ago. It's taken that long to even get this far.
No, sure,
Wow.
but I worked on you
Oh,
about 2 weeks ago. Is that right?
yeah, yes, correct. And what I did is it got into one of those mini food processor things. Somehow I slipped with my finger and I got stuck in there. And it was 5 stitches, blood everywhere, kind of thing. And my finger had turned necrotic. It looked black. In fact, I personally couldn't even look at it because it was so horrific, because I knew I had to visualize it healthy. Otherwise, I was going to go down a hole of it being unhealthy and having to have surgery. And so they were looking at it and they're like, the doctor's like, I'm not really sure about it. And Antonia and I got on the call, and that's when she was doing it. She's like, we can look at it. But it really just needed to have the ability for the skin to become healthy skin and not fall off right away in order for my finger to regrow what needed the skin mass that it needed to do that. So that was the finger. She calls it my blender finger because she thought I would like to blend my fingers.
Okay, so that was what it was. So what's happened in the last it's just a week and a half. It's not quite 2 weeks, but yeah.
Yes. All of a sudden I could just feel so much tingling and energy going to the spot. And it just felt like that the cells were coming together in a way that hadn't been done before. And because she played around with energy, she was trying to get it up to 100, then she was trying to get it up to 150, then she played around with, can I
A
do
lot of blocks. I had to
yeah,
smash a lot of
and
things
then
along the way.
it was block, and then you were like, oh, and you were dowsing. It's like, well, what is the limit? Because at first you thought it was 150, and then we got
Oh,
it up.
and then I had to remove a block in my own brain saying there because that was the limit until I smashed it.
Yeah. And
And that
then you said also, not only was there a block from your side on it, there's a block in my body for accepting it. So then you had to go and fix that and say, okay, undo that. And then you went up, and you just kept on creeping up 25 for 50, and you got it up, and it would, and we actually went further for the next day. And then you came up with, I think the number is 333.
I got
And
stuck at 333 for a long
right.
time.
And then this is what we'll have to look at that. And then I want you to go through the meaning of 333 and then how you went up there. But physically, all the time that she was doing that, first of all, she said she could give it a jolt, like a shock, like we were talking about it, like it was a shock, like, the heart shocks, the EKG shock.
The
And I felt
defibrillators.
a little bit of it when she did that, and then it would taper off. And she was saying, I'd like to keep you at that a little bit longer. And then that's what you were doing. You were playing with that. And I could feel that. So in fact, in a little bit right now, I can feel it sort of coming together. And the good news is that when you feel pain, that means that the skin is part of you. Because before I couldn't feel even pain. So this is good. This was good news. And so then you were like, the next day, I think I got you up to 333. And it keeps on going down, but I'm keeping you up. And so you went back and forth. Now, so tell us a little bit about what those numbers mean and why you were trying to do that.
Well, do you know what? I don't know. I'm trying to play around with these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got stuck at 333 for a long time, and I've been sending you things about 333, and it is a
Right.
divine number. It's a number of Archangel Raphael. I just sent you something. I'm going to check it on my phone because I can't remember what it was. But it was where I got stuck for a long time. And I reckon if we got our whole bodies there, we'd be able to do just really, really crazy, amazing stuff. And I looked at my overall, I've been trying to work on various different things on my body, but we'll keep to your finger for now. So it says 3-3. The Ascended Masters are right by you, assisting you with whatever it is that you're currently working on. You're in great hands. Interesting, hands is in there.
It's so
It's
funny. Yeah.
hilarious. And then the equilibrium, the mind, body, spirit, and focus on all three aspects. Don't neglect one when you see this numbers. So I just started, yeah, playing around with it. And I thought, and I got stuck at 333. I've since gone past 333 for that specific area of the body. We're now at 400, which I've
Ooh.
just upped you to. But I'm thinking, what's the maximum? And what are who's where? So, as I
This is
said,
interesting. Yeah, I love this. Who's where?
who's where and what does
Yeah.
all this mean? I'm always just crazy rabbit holes and all things. And I started thinking about things. And I thought, well, what's my cellular voltage overall? And my cellular voltage overall was like 90. No, I think it started at 80 something. And then it went up to, I've managed to move it up to 90. But what were the bad areas? What were the areas that were bringing me down? And
Mm,
what's going
mhm.
on? So there's a number of areas which are bringing us down. So
Okay.
Lisa's finger's on the mend. So you've been to the doctors. They were shocked. Let's finish on your finger before we go on to the rest of it, though.
Yeah, no,
What did the doctors say when you went back
they,
in?
they took off the bandage, and it was a difference between having that narcotic black skin that was like dead skin,
Necrotic. Yeah.
and it's no longer, it looks like skin. It looks like skin. It has a pinkness to it. It has a real skin feel. Yes, there's like, a little bit of blood around the sides where they finished, did the stitching. But I had the look from the doctor like, oh, I didn't get this is the Italian doctors going in. It's like, oh, mamma mia. Oh, like it was normally like that when they would take off the bandage. And then they were like, oh, wow, that's like a totally different finger. And then it was, it wasn't about now, I need to dress. It's like, okay, come back again in 5 more days. And they kept on looking at it, and just shockingly so. And now it's like to a point where I'm feeling constant tingling, constant little bit of pain, things that are going, and you can tell it's at that point where they're like, leave it out. Now let's get oxygen. And it looks like everything is going to be fine with it.
So you said it was like night and day. It was a huge shift.
Huge shift, huge shift. And I don't think they were expecting anything like that kind of recovery.
This is why it's a med bed.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. So yeah.
And
So
there are no side effects, no negative side effects. Like this is the kind of thing, this is the miracle of it, which is why it was so exciting. Antonia and I were literally just getting together to talk about something else. And
we were supposed to be recording a video and we just got sidetracked.
and this was the perfect sidetrack, because the experience I had in the kind of world of like healthcare stuff about electrical stimulation is the same thing that she was talking about with cellular voltage, that she was looking at, these anecdotal information about how other species were doing. And she was just transitioning that. And I'm like, yeah, electroceuticals is what, this area is called. It's like, it has no side effects. It is the perfect way to do it. And mainstream pharmaceutical companies are desperate to hide it. So kind of things. So this makes so much sense, because there is nothing to buy, nothing to patent, nothing other than pure taking care of yourself. This is the right thing to do.
So yeah, so I'm really happy your finger is growing. Right. So then I doubling back to who's where and where can we get to and what does it all
Yeah.
mean? And
Mhm.
why are there low points? So I just looked into, I always look at Jesus and I always look at Buddha and I always look at ascended masters and go through us. I've sort of got a list of these, the very, very, like totally, properly ascended masters and, just very awakened, completely enlightened people. So they're all at least 1,000, all of them. And I looked at Lord Ashtar and I looked at, various different people around, and they're all at around 1,000. So I reckon
Oh,
if
wow.
you get to 1,000, you can probably instant heal anyone of anything. So we're not there. I'm still in the 90s. But then I
Yeah.
started looking into which organs were low and what was going on. So I've had a thing about the appendix for a long time. I heard in a David Wilcock video a
Mhm.
while ago that the appendix is not as it seems. Now, if anyone doesn't know, it's what the appendix is. It's about a finger size, and it's below the large intestine, and it just looks like it's a balloon which has gone flat. And apparently that's what it is. According to David, which I saw years ago, he said that it's an organ which stores life force and prana. And what happens is we get that from either the sun or also the food that we're eating and the life force in the food that we're eating. And it's supposed to be like an energy stomach. And then that is what helps you to live for longer because you're absorbing the energy. We're energetic beings. And that was atrophied and broken. So I looked at when I dowsed it and it said about 1,000 years ago, which makes sense with a lot of the stuff that Honey's saying with when the dome went up and all the rest of it. So it sort of
Yeah.
fits into her timeline as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I looked at what was the cellular voltage of my appendix. I'm gonna have to look it up on my notes.
Yeah.
So my
And
appendix.
go ahead.
Go on.
Go ahead. I was going to say, while you look at that, is that when you say that about the appendix, interestingly, why is the appendix probably the only organ that you always have to have that has to be removed that gets infected?
Tonsils as well, they're supposed to be part of the immune system, but there's sort of like, the whole, it's an extra organ, we don't really
Right.
need it.
Junk DNA, junk appendix. The tonsils we use, but the appendix we supposedly don't use, and it gets infected, and our solution is to remove it.
I'm
I find
suspicious.
that
I mean, I just don't imagine that we are like these incredible biochemical machines. Why would there be mistakes in the body? Why would there be something which is redundant?
Exactly. So you're doing that. That was what was so fascinating when you said that. I was like, wow, that was just a big revelation. Sort of a little spark went off in my head too. So
yeah. So it's been in the back of my mind for, I mean, at least probably a decade since I heard that thing about it. And I'm like, how do I get that working? What is it? And what's going on with it? So I'm trying to regenerate my appendix, see if that works, because if that means that you can live a lot longer, like, why is it that there are animals that can regenerate? Why is it that we age in the way? If you look at, what are they called? Jellyfish regenerate. They can keep living for a long time. Like the whole of them
we're
they can
not
live
thrilled
hundreds of
about
years.
that. No.
But
About the
why is it these lower life forms can regenerate, as we call them, lizards and jellyfish and worms? What is it? Why? And there are certain fish that can do things as well. Anyway, so I started working on that. So I'm working on my appendix. I'm a long way. I started at 5%. Like, it's just completely, the cellular voltage of my appendix is super low. It was at 5%. I've managed to get it to 10, but we're still, there's a long way to go with that. So
Wow.
see
And
if we
so
can
you're
get that.
still working on that, right? You're
Oh
still
God, that's going to
your
take me
appendix.
months.
Yeah. Okay. No, but this is really interesting, because if that's the kind, what you're doing is you're going in a progression to say the core thesis really is voltage, energy voltage of our systems. And then you also were equating that. I was saying to you that I equated that with impacts and jolts of it, little sparks of it, as health. So if you constantly are stimulating with this electrical currency, you're stimulating for health reasons. And you said the same thing. So we both came at it from different ways, saying this is a thesis that works. Then you're
It's
saying
also funny, currency, I think, is an interesting word, because we all think money is currency as well.
Yeah, and that, well, money is an energy, but we were always taught it wasn't, and money is an energy. So then you went on to say, like, where our bodies should do in a resting state where you don't have that extra stimuli, it's between 50 or 70 and 100.
If you're healthy.
If you're healthy, and if you're sick, it also equates to lower, which then shows you why. So that all fits in. Now you're saying, what parts of my body are out of whack? And then you're also saying,
because it's the mean average. So if we think of it as a mean average, so if anyone's forgotten their maths from school, a mean average is you add up all the different numbers and then you divide it by the number that you've got to find out the average around between them. So some of them are at 100 and some of them are at 5, and then it's average between those. If you sort of, they all balance off like that.
So let's actually look, did we get to a point, Antonia, where you knew what the average is of a system of a jellyfish or a salamander?
No. I can find out.
Yeah, let's think of, because that could be
I haven't
interesting
done that.
about why are they able to do that, and what's their resting healthy state?
This is new information. Okay, cellular voltage salamander 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 110 for, yeah, average is, the mean average is
That's the
110 for a
salamander.
salamander. And 10 to 100, 240 for the jellyfish in question.
See, interesting. See, this is how our conversation was before. It would be like, we have this idea, like, oh, she's dowsing, and we're going back and forth on this. And that's interesting. So what you're saying is resting state for that species that is able to regenerate is at a much higher level than our resting state. So let's ask this question. What should our resting state, our healthy state be?
I don't think should's the right question.
Okay.
What's our potential, I think, is a better question. I
All
don't
right,
think
let's do
should is the
that.
right
I
question.
love it.
Should
Is that
according
okay?
to who?
Yeah. Can we ask that question?
It's 1,000. The answer is 1,000. Our optimal is 1,000.
Wow.
But that means we're ascended masters. I mean, that means we are doing all of that.
Well, so okay, so let's play around and say, let's for giggle say we're 4D positive right now. What should it be 4D positive? Maybe it's not a quick
it's
question.
quite funny. I've got it written down. It says 333 is 4D positive between except. Oh, so the other thing is really interesting is that chart that I pulled up before in our previous video. We were talking about the resonance chart.
Right.
Yeah. So, and it's about the vibration of different emotions, and I think that they're intertwined. So, what's really interesting is in that chart, it talks about 4D positive and the emotions associated, and the resonance of the emotions with 333 and 4D positive.
Right.
It's 333, and that's sort of been the maximum. But the problem is we've got certain things which are bringing us down. So we're talking about a mean average. So you can have some bits working really well and some bits working really badly, but you really, to be in 4D positive, fully embodied, I believe, this is embodiment because it's actually in the physical body. So I think to be fully in 4D positive, you need all of it working at 333, and then I reckon you're going to have some big abilities, big powers to be able to do things. I do think if you want to be doing instant healing of all diseases like some very advanced beings were doing, I think 1,000 would be excellent. But I reckon at 333, you can probably heal anything and anyone. It just might not be instantaneous. So how do we get all of it and what's going on? So yesterday, I went off down another rabbit hole, and I started thinking, I'm always in rabbit holes, my whole life, just like, because no one's discovered this stuff before, and I had this spark of an idea, and then you triggered me yesterday from one of your videos as well, talking about financial things of black swan stuff. And I don't know why that triggered me. I was on my exercise bike, and
I know we never know what triggers us. That's why it's great to just absorb and experience so many things. I love that. I love it.
Yeah. So I started thinking about, maybe because I was on my exercise bike at the time, I started thinking about body fat. And I thought, because I'm working through my bodily system. So I'm working my cardiovascular, my immune, I'm working on, like, sometimes it's individual organs, sometimes it's systems, I'm just, and I'm getting I'm able to do, I'm downloading more of this tech to be able to do, or awakening it within. And then I'm able to do bigger systems, and I have to pull in these different bits, and it's a lot going on. So I started thinking about body fat. Now, what is the cellular voltage of body fat?
Yeah.
So as we said, I'm going to get back into the numbers because I think it's really important. This is why I opened with it. So according to this, before I say that, it's really interesting that the according to the charts, it says 70 to 100 to be healthy. I found out that a embryo is 150. Salamanders who can grow back limbs, we just dowsed at 110. So I reckon 100 is like being capped on purpose, because we start to be able to regenerate when we exceed 100.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So I think now it was capped. There are a lot of cappings on these things. So then I started thinking about body fat. Now I started thinking about what's the rate. I dowsed it. So as we say, 30 to 50 is unhealthy. Cancer cells are 20, 70 to 100 is optimal according to what's been done before. So 30 to 50 is sickness. So I just checked into body fat, and it's a range. Body fat ranges between 32 and 41 according to my calculations.
Yeah.
Which I started thinking, hang on a minute, body fat is new. In the 70s, we didn't have it, and it's a lot to do with what is body fat? Body fat intrinsically is toxins that we haven't been able to excrete because we have been overloaded.
Yeah, this is so important. This is so important, and people do not understand that. And you're starting to see things understand. It's like it is toxins building up in your body and really has not been part of our human body until the recent times.
It's new. And where are we getting toxins? We're getting a lot of toxins from every single thing. We've got with all the food that we're eating, which is grown with pesticides. Most food is grown with horrible chemicals. We're thinking about
modified as well.
Genetically modified pesticides. There are chemtrails. There are things in the air, like pretty much there are all the chemicals which are around, maybe in our cleaning products, in our washing products. Every single thing that we're absorbing is chemicals. And what happens is our body can only excrete a certain number of chemicals in a day because it's just overloaded. There's only so much work it can do in a day. So the reason I think fasting helps people a lot is because then it has the chance to get to some of the things that it swept under the rug.
That's a really
sweep them under the rug. But how clever. So if your mean average is the thing which is important, how dastardly but clever. The dark side are always smart. There's no doubt that they are evil geniuses, quite literally. So if you have a higher body fat percentage, unfortunately, that is going to be keeping your resonance down, because the vibration of the body fat is 30 to 41. And so what they're doing is poisoning us on purpose so that keeps us from ascending.
A low grade continuous poison. Very, very sneaky poison. Yeah.
It's sneaky. So, so I'm wondering, so then I started playing around with body fat and to see if I could raise the cellular frequency of body fat for myself. I've only started this yesterday, so I don't know how it's going to work out yet. But I am wondering if that means that either the frequency of the body fat is going to go up or the body fat is just going to melt.
Yeah.
Those are my two hypotheses. I don't know yet. I'm not there yet.
No, this is great because I get this text, this voice message from Antonia, like, I just thought about body fat and I just understood and I doused it, and this is what the frequency is, and this is really, really important. And you're right, this is really, really important. That's probably why we have so much more liver problems right now, because our body cannot get rid of all the toxins, and that's why it absorbs in our body as this fat. But you also mentioned something really interesting when you identified this. You said that this is probably the reason why those who have more body fat have a harder time and have more concomitant illnesses.
Yeah, because of the frequency. Because unfortunately, the more body fat you have, the more it's going to be the mean average. We're just thinking about mean average. The mean average is going to be going down for your body overall, which means your body voltage is just lower, which means that you're more susceptible to things, because it's about the body voltage, which tells you where your illness lies.
Yeah, that I thought was magic, because anybody who goes and listens to what your health thing is, that if you have more body fat, if you're heavier, you have more diseases,
more susceptible to diseases. Yeah,
you have heart conditions, pulmonary conditions. Then you talk about diabetes. All of those are supposedly associated with high percentage body fat.
And is it the cellular voltage that's causing us to have all sorts of different illnesses? That's the question that we're playing around with. And, what's going to happen with all of this stuff? And can we isolate cellular voltage? Can we improve it? Can we get the whole body up to a certain different level? So we've done your finger, and that's having like miraculous results, really.
Unbelievable. I mean, the fact that I cannot be in a bandage and I can physically do this is just a night and day. So thank you, my dear. Thank you.
And so I started messing around with my face.
Don't mess it up. It's gorgeous.
I'm always doing something weird because I just suddenly look, I just know that two products which are in desperate need and would be, good to take to market is anti-aging and weight loss, because most people want those things.
Oh,
It's a huge product and it would help so many people. And it's much more easy to accept and understand than some of the other far out stuff saying that, helping
yeah,
with different illnesses. It's just a really good introduction to market, and it's a product which pretty much everybody wants to some degree.
yeah.
So they've always been on the back burner. These beauty products have always been on the back burner. So I just, as we were doing Lisa's finger, I was like, I'll do my face, see what happens, and see if we can regenerate my face. So I've had a weird few weeks too. So I started doing it, and immediately my eyesight increased and my sense of smell got better the following day, and
Hmm.
my minimal wrinkles have lightened up a touch, not fully, but I haven't finished doing this. But I
Right.
have noticed that underneath this eye, when I smile, there are some lines, and they look a
Oh,
little bit lighter
a
than they
little bit
did before
different.
I
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. But maybe that's just like, because that comes into your entire body. It's not just your face, it's all cells, how
I
you
need
read.
to do the whole body, but the problem is I've got body fat, which is very, very low, an appendix, which is very, very low. And I'm going to have to go through and find out which the low points are and try and just do a tick box and bring those ones up because of the mean average. That needs to be worked on. And also
So
just,
in your case, let's use you as the sort of the test thesis on this, to say things in our body that are bringing our overall voltage down, cellular voltage down, is the appendix,
yeah,
body fat. Have
yeah.
you thought about, are there other things? What about, is there anything else in our body? Are there particular organs, our liver right now, given that it's so stressed out?
As far as I can tell, it depends on the health of your body. So, obvious. So I think body fat and the appendix are two two really big ones. But obviously, if you have a sick liver, then your liver voltage is going to be low. If you have a sick heart, then your heart voltage. I don't. Okay, well, let's see if there. It's really difficult to dowse this way.
Yeah.
What about our pineal? The other ones I was looking at, the pineal and the pituitary, because I think those are very important. And there's another, you know,
Thyroid?
potential. Apparently, our pineal glands have atrophied and shrunk significantly. They were the size of a pine cone initially. So let's do that. What's the pine?
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Okay, we're getting some really unique
I
things.
know. So this is the thing. I've got all these little tidbits in my brain. I'm like, why is that? And also, it does look shriveled. If you look at it, it looks shriveled. Same as the appendix. They do look like they're a balloon without any air.
Wow. Okay,
So
let's do that. Let's do that. And then let's do the pineal gland.
pineal. All right, let me write it down because I'll need these later.
And then let's also try the thyroid. Because that
Okay,
seems
so
to
the
be,
average pineal, cellular vulture, the pineal is 10, 20, 31, 37. Not surprised.
37.
37 is average. Is that a range? No, that's average. Okay, it's not really so much of a range because I think body fat can be different for different people for whatever reason. There was a range for that. I think that might also have to do with your general overall health.
Right, right.
I think they're interrelated somehow.
Okay.
Pituitary is at 10, 20, 31, 37 again. Pituitary is 37, average. What was the other one you wanted to know? Your thyroid.
Thyroid.
Thyroid is at 10, 21, 20, 30, 30.
See, all of this, that's interesting. That's really interesting. All of them are in that same range, the 30 to 40 range. That's really,
Which is, sickness,
so I wonder, and so many people are having issues with thyroid, which controls all of your hormonal system,
Mhm.
which is,
Let's look at the
which actually is
adrenals as
how,
well, because the adrenals and the hypothalamus would also be very interesting for the endocrine
okay,
system.
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. This is basically everyone who's watching this is just getting an insight. This is what Lisa and I spent hours just like, what about this? What about this? This is literally us. This is how we work. Adrenals at 10, 21, 22, 23, 25, 27, 28. Adrenals is low, 28 on average. What the hell do the adrenals do? I mean, I know that they're obvious. I know what they do now, but
Adrenaline,
what can they do? That's what I mean.
It's actually how your body, it's like part of your body furnace in a way, like how you run.
Yeah, and also it's about energy levels, and so are the
That's
kidneys. The
exactly what I
kidneys and the
mean, energy
adrenals are
level.
interrelated. Hypothalamus is at 10, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 30 on average. And let's look at the kidneys as well, because the kidneys is about life force
Yeah.
energy too. They're interrelated with the adrenals, and kidneys are quite related in Chinese medicine. Kidneys at 10, 20, 30, 41, 42, 43. 43 better.
Mhm.
43. Okay, yeah. So
Mhm.
there are other bits. I'm sure people write
So,
in the comments
so it's
below.
interesting, all of these organs that we've looked at and these hormone, this kind of thing, you've looked at things that are way below the average of what we should
Yeah.
be. What is above average? What do we think is, well, let's look at our heart. What
Yeah,
about,
I'm thinking heart to look at.
yeah,
Heart is at 10, average is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Is that average?
okay.
80, yeah, volts, cellular voltage. It's in millivolts potentially.
Okay, okay.
So the heart's not, well, I mean, maybe, but the heart is holding everything together.
Right. Well, I think this is really interesting. I think we should play around with this, but I think this just gives people an idea of what you're talking about. So voltage is incredible. It's a life force. It's our is the electrical current, the voltage that we are is
Think
into.
about pacemakers and think about, the defibrillators. Like you can bring someone back to life by putting an electrical current through them. Like we are energetic beings. We are made of energy, and then energy is the building blocks of everything else in our body. So if you get the voltage, it's a huge
This is
potential.
huge. Yeah, this is like,
Mm.
I think this is like an introduction of what, what you're looking at is that, the idea and what you're playing around with is like providing energetic shocks like an EK, like what you do when you have, your heart restarted.
Mm.
That is a healing thing. Our energy levels are important. The different parts of our body have different energies, and how can we play around with that? So maybe next time we can also start looking at what foods provide better energy. How do we create a better energetic resource? And then how do we then focus in on improving that energy and getting rid of
Mm.
the things in our body that way? But I think this is a great start, but this is amazing.
It's interesting. I do want to do a little caveat, everyone. I am still in the infancy about this.
Yeah,
I am just really learning. This has been 2 weeks. I haven't taught anyone how to do it yet. It's brand spanking new. So I'm not ready to be working on people doing cellular voltage just now. I need to make
right,
sure that I don't bring a product to market which isn't ready to be brought to market. So I'm not doing healings on this at the moment because I'm not clear on it yet. And I'm
right.
trying to get my body sorted out first, and Lisa being a guinea pig for that. So, but I think we can circle back in a month or so, and then I can start doing that. So,
Exactly,
as we
but
said,
I
it's
think we should play around a little bit more, but I thought this was really important, and it's such a great introduction, and thanks for sharing this, because this is where healing is going. This is
yeah,
a
this is the future of healing, and I reckon this is what med beds do, and we can become human med beds potentially.
exactly, my darling. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before we end this session? We've already been an hour or
Um,
so, because it's so much
yeah, we've
fun.
been going for ages. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in my notes. Oh yeah, Forever Young. I worked out that. Do you want to know the number?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so according to my estimations, Forever Young, which is so you don't want to be immortal. You want to live. You want to be young forever. So Forever Young is around 120 everywhere.
So all of your organs, all of your systems, everything needs to be
Yeah,
100.
because you can grow a whole human at 150. So
Yeah.
if you can stay, but then we look at the jellyfish, which is even higher. I don't know what they're up to, but they're having
They
a
have a
great time
short
at
life, though.
250.
They have a short life, I think, jellyfish.
No, there are jellyfish that live forever. They're immortal jellyfish. That's what I'm talking about. They're immortal. Certain species of jellyfish are completely immortal. They regenerate their whole bodies all the time.
So they don't procreate in the same way, they just regenerate their bodies.
And they can procreate too, but there are immortal jellyfish.
All right, we're gonna have
Not
to
all
look
of them, I don't think, but
that
some
up.
of
Okay,
them.
let's look that up, but this is interesting. Right, so what you're saying, but in general, the other thing we had spoken about, which, you know, there's it comes down to is that aging is actually a belief system, a distortion that was put upon us. We were always meant to be at our optimal, which is what you said, forever young, meaning, right, as long as we live. And we are supposed to live much longer lives. Our lifespan was altered. So this is the interesting thing that we'll be talking about, because this comes down to a belief system and a distortion that has been put upon us. And I think what you're doing is you're breaking through the how, but we're also need to address the what was the belief system, the construct, because everything we experience here is predicated on a belief system that we hold true.
So the other thing I heard the other day, which I don't know if this is accurate, but it made me go, huh. So I watched a video and it said that apparently in the Garden of Eden, we used to live till 1,000 years. And then with the whole eating of the apple and the sin, I mean, I'm not religious, so whatever the premise is of it, apparently after that, or the genetic modification, which happened potentially with the Anunnaki, maybe it was that the Lyrians built us and we could live for a long time, and the Anunnaki changed us, maybe it's that. But then it went down to 120. So it went from 1,000 to 120 with the modification that was done to us.
Yeah.
Maybe Garden of Anunnaki, whoever it was. But yeah, that's what it was. But it's interesting that the number 120, which is
Keeps on coming back again. Yeah,
mm,
120. But it's interesting. But so that's interesting. So maybe we'll go and explore a little bit more on those numbers, how they relate, because you said 1,000, which is what you said, ascended master.
yeah.
Then you went to 120, because numbers always matter in the world, the universe that we live in. But this is exciting. So this is an introduction to this incredible breakthrough. And, you know, we're seeing it from a variety of sources. And to me, it's really exciting to hear what Antonia has to say. So
Yeah,
great.
and let us know, because this is a new field. So please do comment, do like and subscribe, obviously, to both Lisa for Question and Narrative and me on my YouTube, Divine Empowerment, or Divinely Empowered on Spotify. All the details will be below anyway. But, tell us what you think. We need
Yeah,
to,
what
we,
your
we need a
experience.
discourse in this, because I don't know all of it. And like Lisa's great at pulling ideas out of my brain. But there are things. This is
Yeah.
uncharted territory, and it's really fun playing, exploring and learning about this new stuff, because the potentiality of it is basically everything,
It's life
having
changing.
all the ascended abilities and living forever and be able to self-regenerate, like it's optimal health.
It's optimal health throughout our lifetime, whatever our life expectancy as we choose it to be. So we will leave it at that, because it correlates with what we're doing in electroculture, electroceuticals, all of this stuff. It just fits in beautifully. So Antonia, thank you for
Thank
sharing,
you,
for the
Lisa.
inspiration. And I'm Lisa from Question the Narrative, Antonia from Divine Empowerment. Have a wonderful Saturday. Ciao.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.